This is Max and Mia podcast.
Hello, hello. Welcome back to Max and Mia podcast, the podcast where we help you take your English to the next level. I'm Matthew.
And I'm Rachel. So glad you're here with us today.
Now, if you're a regular listener, you already know something's a little different right now.
That's right. We're actually recording on a Sunday, which honestly feels a little strange to me.
A little strange, Rachel? I had to set 3 alarms.
Okay, fair enough. So for those of you who are newer to the show, Matthew and I usually pop in on Wednesdays. That's our regular day. Every week, no exceptions.
Well, almost no exceptions.
Almost, because today is one of those special ones where we are making a tiny exception. This is a bonus episode, which means you're getting extra content this weekend.
Exactly. And if you were wondering about Max and Mia, don't worry. They will be back tomorrow on Monday as usual.
But since it's just the two of us today, we thought, why not make it worth your time?
Absolutely. We've got a really great topic lined up for you today, so make sure you stick around for that.
But before we get into everything, can I just say something? I had the most chaotic morning.
Oh no, what happened?
Okay, so I was trying to sort out a subscription I completely forgot I had. One of those things where you sign up, you think I'll cancel it later, and then you don't.
The classic trap.
The absolute classic. And I sat there going through my bank statements like, when did I agree to this? How long has this been going on?
I feel like everyone has at least one of those. Mine was a gym membership. 3 months, Matthew. 3 months of not going.
See, and that's exactly why today's episode felt so necessary. Because these things happen to all of us. It doesn't matter how smart you are or how responsible you think you are.
Money stuff just slips through the cracks.
It really does. And nobody really teaches you how to handle it, do they? Like, at some point, you're just supposed to figure it out on your own.
Which is a little terrifying when you think about it.
Completely terrifying.
So, that brings us to today's theme. And honestly, we couldn't be more excited about this one.
Today, we're talking about financial adulting, and we mean that in the broadest sense. We're covering money habits, budgeting, how to actually build a healthier relationship with your finances, and of course, tons of vocabulary that's going to be super useful whether you're reading articles, listening to podcasts, or just having conversations in English about money.
Because let's be honest, money is one of those topics that comes up all the time in real life, but a lot of learners feel a bit lost when it shows up in English.
And we want to change that. By the end of this episode, you're going to walk away with practical language, real concepts, and maybe even a couple of habits worth trying.
This is one of those episodes you might want to listen to more than once, just saying.
All right, let's get into it.
So let's kick things off with something that I think a lot of people feel, but don't always talk about out loud.
Ooh, what are we going there?
The timeline. You know, the invisible schedule that society kind of puts on your life. The one that says, by this age, you should have this job. By that age, you should own a house. By 30, you should have it all figured out.
Oh, no, we're really doing this one, aren't we?
We're doing it. And I think it's important, especially because so many of our listeners are at different stages of life. Some of you are in your early 20s, just getting started. Some of you are a bit further along and still feel like you're catching up. And both of those are completely valid.
I think what gets people is the comparison. You look at your parents' generation and think, well, they had a house by 25, they had 2 kids and a steady job, and here I am still figuring out how to file my taxes properly.
Right. And look, that comparison isn't even fair. The world has changed massively. The cost of living, the job market, student loans, it's a completely different landscape.
But the feeling is still there, isn't it? That quiet voice in the back of your head that says, you're behind.
Absolutely. And I'll be honest with you, I feel that too. There are areas of my life where I genuinely think, okay, I should have sorted this out by now. Like, I'm still not consistent with saving. I know what I'm supposed to do, I just don't always do it.
Oh, Thank you for saying that, because I feel the same way about investing. Everyone talks about it like it's obvious, like it's the most natural thing in the world, and I'm sitting here going, I don't even fully understand how it works yet.
And that's the point, right? You're not alone in that. If you're listening right now and thinking, I feel like I'm supposed to have my finances sorted by now, that's a really common feeling, and we want to name it.
We want to name it, and then we want to work with it. Because feeling behind doesn't mean you are behind. It might just mean you're measuring yourself against the wrong timeline.
All right, so let's turn this into something useful for your English, because this feeling, this idea of being where you're supposed to be, actually connects to two really important grammar structures.
The first one is supposed to. And this one's great because it expresses expectation, something that others expect from you or something you expect from yourself. For example, I'm supposed to have my savings account set up by now.
It's not a rule. It's more like a social pressure, a quiet obligation. I'm supposed to call my bank today. She's supposed to start her new job next month. You'll hear this one constantly in everyday conversation.
And the second structure is should have. Now, this one goes even deeper because it's about the past. It expresses regret or the feeling that something didn't go the way it was meant to. I should have started saving in my 20s. I should have asked more questions before signing that contract.
Notice that should have plus a past participle. Should have started. Should have asked. It's a really powerful way to talk about decisions you look back on with a little bit of weight.
Not guilt necessarily, just awareness. And that's an important distinction.
Let's look at a few more examples together. I feel like I should have figured this out by now. She thinks she's supposed to be earning more at her age. We should have read the terms and conditions more carefully.
Now, here's a question for you, our listener. Think about one area of your life where you feel that pressure, where you tell yourself, I should have done this already. I'm supposed to be further along. Write it down if you can, and then ask yourself honestly, is that timeline actually yours, or did someone else hand it to you?
That's a good one to sit with.
Now, before we move on, let's lock in 3 vocabulary words from this segment.
First one. Milestone. A milestone is an important achievement or stage in your life or career. Buying my first car was a real milestone for me. You'll hear this word a lot in personal finance, business, and career conversations.
Second, to fall behind. This means to make less progress than expected, or to not keep up with something. I fell behind on my payments this month. Don't worry if you fall behind. You can always catch up.
And third, to figure it out. This is a phrasal verb, and it means to find a solution, to understand something through effort. I didn't know how to budget at first, but I figured it out eventually. Super common, very natural, and honestly one of the most useful phrases in everyday English.
Milestone. Fall behind. Figure it out. You've got this.
Okay, next up, and I think this one's going to hit close to home for a lot of people.
Already dreading it a little.
So let's talk about what I like to call the treat culture trap. You know what I mean? You've had a long week, everything feels heavy, and you think, you know what, I deserve something nice today. A good coffee, a new game, maybe a little online shopping, just something to take the edge off.
And there is nothing wrong with that. That's what I want to say first. The desire to comfort yourself after a hard week is not a character flaw. It's human.
100%. But here's where it gets complicated. For a lot of people, that small daily treat exists right next to a loan payment or a credit card bill or a subscription they can barely afford, and the treat happens anyway. And then comes the guilt.
Oh, the guilt. I know that cycle really well. You spend a little on something nice, you feel better for about 20 minutes, and then the guilt creeps in and you feel worse than before.
Exactly. And I think the reason this happens is not because people are irresponsible, it's because they're exhausted. There's a concept called burnout, and it's incredibly relevant here.
Burnout is that state of complete mental and emotional exhaustion, usually from prolonged stress. And when you're burned out, your brain is actively looking for relief. Quick relief. Something that feels good right now.
And that's actually a neurological thing. It's connected to dopamine, which is a chemical in your brain linked to reward and pleasure. When you buy something small that makes you happy, you get what people call a dopamine hit, a small, fast rush of good feelings.
And the problem isn't the dopamine hit. The problem is when it's the only tool you have to manage stress.
So what do we do with that? Well, I think the first step is just removing the shame, understanding that this behavior comes from exhaustion, not weakness.
Agreed. And I actually want to push back on something here, Matthew, because I've seen a lot of financial advice that basically says, stop buying coffee, stop treating yourself, every penny matters. And while I understand the math behind that,
It completely ignores the emotional side.
exactly. If cutting out every small joy makes your day unbearable, you're not going to stick to it. And that's not a willpower problem. That's just not being realistic about what people actually need to function.
I think the more honest conversation is, are your treats proportional to your income? Are they occasional, or are they filling a gap that something else should be filling? And that second question is the harder one.
It really is. Because sometimes what we need isn't a new subscription. It's rest, or connection, or just the feeling that our effort is being recognized.
Yeah, that one lands differently.
Okay, let's get into the language here, because there's some fantastic vocabulary in this topic.
First, treat yourself. This is a phrase you'll hear everywhere in English. It means to buy or do something nice for yourself, usually as a small reward. I finished a really tough project this week, so I treated myself to a nice dinner.
Second, guilty pleasure. This is something you enjoy but feel a little embarrassed or conflicted about. My guilty pleasure is buying way too many phone cases. It's usually lighthearted, but in the context of money, it can carry a heavier feeling.
Third, burnout. We already covered this one, but let's make sure it's clear. Burnout is deep, prolonged exhaustion caused by stress, usually work-related. After 6 months of overtime, she was completely burned out.
And fourth, dopamine hit. This is the feeling of a quick reward or pleasure boost. It's informal, but very common, especially in conversations about habits, social media, and spending. Checking my phone every 5 minutes is just a dopamine hit I've gotten too used to.
Now, here's the grammar structure for this segment, and it's a really practical one. We're looking at even though and despite. Both are used to show contrast, a situation where two things seem to go against each other.
Even though is followed by a full sentence. Even though I have a loan to pay off, I still bought the game because I needed to disconnect. You're acknowledging the conflict directly.
Despite works a little differently. It's followed by a noun or a noun phrase. Despite the pressure to save more, she took a weekend trip to recharge. Same idea, slightly different structure.
Here's one more. Despite feeling guilty about it, I don't regret treating myself that day. I needed it. And that is a completely valid sentence to say out loud.
Let's throw a question to you, listener. Think about your last guilty pleasure purchase. Was it actually bad for your finances in the long run? Or was it a small thing that kept you going? There's no judgment here. We're just asking you to reflect, because that awareness is actually the first step toward better habits.
And that's something we really believe. Awareness before action. Always.
All right, we're moving into our third segment, and this one feels very personal to both of us.
Yeah, a little too personal, honestly.
So we want to talk about something that doesn't get discussed enough in financial conversations, and that's the work that nobody sees, the effort that doesn't show up on a spreadsheet yet.
Because here's the thing.
A lot of the people listening to this right now are working incredibly hard. Maybe you're learning a new skill from scratch. Maybe you're building something on the side, an online store, a freelance project, a creative business, and you're putting in hours and energy and money into tools and subscriptions and courses.
And the results aren't there yet.
And the results aren't there yet. And that's a deeply frustrating place to be, because the people around you, and sometimes even you yourself, tend to measure success in very visible ways. Numbers, revenue, followers, a title, a salary.
And if those things aren't big enough yet, the work gets dismissed. Or worse, you start to dismiss it yourself.
I went through this when I was first trying to build something independently. I had been working on it for months, and someone asked me how it was going, and I said, "It's going okay, but I haven't made much money yet." And the conversation just moved on, like that was the end of the story.
But it wasn't the end of the story. It was chapter 2.
Exactly. And I think there's a word that captures that feeling really well. Undervalued. Feeling like your effort isn't being recognized or measured correctly.
And part of that comes from a distorted definition of success. We've been conditioned, by social media especially, to think that success is visible, fast, and dramatic. But real, lasting success is usually quiet and slow and built on hundreds of small decisions.
Which brings me to something that genuinely frustrates me. The idea that effort only counts once it pays off, that you only deserve respect for your work after it's already successful.
Which is completely backwards.
Completely. Because the hardest part is usually the beginning, when you're investing in tools you're not sure about, learning things that take way longer than you expected, making sales that feel tiny compared to what you're putting in.
And here's something worth thinking about. A lot of people equate their net worth with their self-worth, and that's a really dangerous equation. Your value as a person is not the same as your bank balance, and yet, the way our culture talks about money, it can start to feel that way.
That's the distorted definition of success we mentioned, and it's worth calling it out by name because once you can see it, it loses some of its power over you.
So if you're in that place right now, if you're working on something that nobody can see the value of yet, we want you to hear this. The effort is real. The progress is real. The fact that it isn't generating big results yet doesn't mean it isn't working. Keep going. Chapter 2 is still part of the story. Okay, let's talk grammar, because this segment gives us a really important contrast in English tenses, present perfect versus past simple. And this is one that learners often mix up, so let's make it very clear.
Past simple is for actions that are finished. They happened at a specific point in the past and they're done. I launched my online store in March. I made 5 sales last month.
Present perfect is different. It connects the past to the right now. It says something happened before this moment and it's still relevant. I've been working on this project for 6 months. I've learned so much since I started.
Here's a sentence that puts them both together. I've worked on my store every single day this month, but I only made 2 sales last week. The present perfect, I've worked, shows the ongoing effort. The past simple, I made, gives the specific finished result.
And notice the emotional weight in that sentence. It captures exactly that feeling of putting in continuous effort and measuring it against a single disappointing result. That contrast is something the present perfect communicates really well.
One more example. She has studied for this certification for 3 months. She passed the first exam yesterday. Continuous effort, specific achievement. 2 tenses, 1 complete picture.
Now the vocabulary for this segment. 3 words that are going to show up a lot in professional and financial conversations.
First, undervalued. This means not being given enough recognition or compensation for your work or abilities.
A lot of entry-level workers feel undervalued in their first jobs.
Second, to equate. This means to consider two things as equal or equivalent, usually when that comparison is a bit forced or misleading. People often equate a high salary with job satisfaction, but the two aren't always the same.
And third, distorted definition of success. This is a phrase, not just a single word, but it's worth memorizing as a unit. A distorted definition means a version of something that's been stretched or twisted away from reality. Social media often promotes a distorted definition of success that's based entirely on what's visible.
These three expressions will genuinely elevate your English in professional context, essays, presentations, interviews. They show nuance, and nuance is what separates a B1 speaker from a B2 speaker.
And that's exactly where we want you to be going.
Okay, we are wrapping up this episode, and honestly, I feel like we covered a lot of ground today.
We really did, and in such a different way than the usual, here are 5 tips for saving money kind of episode.
Which I appreciate, by the way. I think these conversations matter because they're honest. We didn't come here today and pretend that financial adulting is easy or that there's a simple formula that works for everyone.
Because there isn't. And I think one of the most useful things we can do is just make you feel less alone in this. The timeline pressure, the treat culture guilt, the invisible effort that nobody applauds. These are real experiences, and they're worth talking about.
Let's do a quick recap of what we covered today, because there was genuinely a lot of language packed in here.
In segment 1, we talked about the pressure of timelines and the grammar structures supposed to and should have. We also covered the vocabulary words milestone, fall behind, and figure it out.
In segment 2, we got into treat culture and financial guilt, and we practiced even though and despite as contrast connectors. The vocabulary there was treat yourself, guilty pleasure, burnout, and dopamine hit.
And in segment 3, we talked about invisible effort and the distorted definitions of success we carry around. We worked on present perfect versus past simple, and the words undervalued, equate, and distorted definition of success.
That is a solid set of tools. And remember what we said at the top of this episode. By the time you finished listening, you'd have practical language, real concepts, and maybe even a habit or two worth trying.
So here's your habit for this week. Just one. Pick one of the 3 vocabulary sets from today and try to use at least one word or phrase in a real context. Write a sentence in your notes app, say it out loud in the mirror, use it in a comment or a message, just once.
Because that's how language becomes yours, not by studying it, by using it.
And if you want to go deeper with any of today's topics, whether it's the grammar structures, the vocabulary, or even the financial concepts themselves, send us a message. We read everything.
We genuinely do. And if this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. A friend who's been hard on themselves about money, someone who's building something slowly, someone who needs to be reminded that being in Chapter 2 is not the same as failing.
That's it from us today. Thank you so much for spending your Sunday with Max and Mia. This was a special one, and you made it worth showing up for.
Take care of yourselves out there, and we'll see you on Wednesday.
Back to our regular schedule.
Back to our regular schedule. Bye for now.
Bye.
To keep taking your English to the next level, click on the next video or explore the others we've made for you.